Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hands, and for this video I'm going to be going through the Phantasm movies, and I'm going to be going through them starting with the one that I enjoy the least and working my way up to the one that I enjoy the most. So I feel I should preface, Phantasm is not my favourite franchise at all. I won't say it's the worst franchise in horror. It's the one that is the most unappealing to me personally, and the one that I kind of struggle to access more than any of the others. It's just very, very weird. I've always had a hard time with Phantasm. But I did have a bit of a movie marathon the other day with Steve from H's Film Fan. Thank you for having me, Steve. And we watched all 5 Phantasm movies. So I thought, well, it's fresh in my head, and while I can remember, I will go through these movies and put them in some kind of order. So I don't think it'll be the most agreeable countdown that I've done, so brace yourself. But yeah, we'll get on with it, and I will do my ranking video for the Phantasm movies. Okay, so starting with the movie that I enjoy the least, and I just have to be honest about this. The first movie is the original Phantasm. As much as I try, I just cannot get into this movie. I do not see the appeal of Phantasm. Me and this movie just do not connect. It is way too bizarre for me. I have no idea what's going on in the film. I don't like the feel of it. I don't like the tone. It's a jarring mix of horror, fantasy, and just general weirdness that has never worked for me. Ever since I was a kid and watching it numerous times, and up until the other day, I just cannot get into this film. And I have tried. I've seen Phantasm a lot. Like, I've watched Phantasm more than some films that I actually really like. But it just doesn't do it for me. I don't know what they were on when they were making this, but it's all over the place. There's some scenes are done particularly well. So to the scene with the tall man when he's carrying the coffin, and a few set pieces are pretty good. Some nice scenery in it. Other scenes are just really clumsily put together and just don't work for me. The music's fantastic, I will give it that. Phantasm has an amazing musical score, one of the best in horror, I would say, and the music is kind of kept throughout the series, so that's a good thing. But on the whole, the first Phantasm, it just does not do it for me. I have never enjoyed this film, and I don't think I ever will. It's just not a film that I like. Too weird for me. Now, the sequels would kind of explain the tall man a bit more, and it sort of ties the weirdness up a little bit. I'll get to those later. But the first one for me is just an absolute mess. I don't like it. So the first film is first up. Okay, next up is Phantasm 4, Oblivion. And by this stage, at part 4, I feel they've really kind of embraced the science fiction aspect of Phantasm, and it works more in the franchise's favour. So in part 4, we have sort of Michael Baldwin and the Reggie character are sort of well on the way to trying to bring down the tall man. Michael Baldwin's kind of experimenting more with the balls, the orbs and stuff that the tall man uses. It gets a bit, like I say, science fiction-y. It's got a great start. It's got a really good recap of what's gone on so far, which is more of like a medley montage kind of thing, rather than just a straight up recap of the previous movies. And there's a great sort of kind of opening scene where Reggie's dealing with this demonic state trooper. Sets the film up really good. After that, I think the film kind of loses steam a little bit. It really slows down in pace and becomes a little bit plodding. It's a TV movie, which is not a bad thing, but you can kind of feel some of the limitations with that. And there's a lot of kind of drawn out scenes of the desert and Michael Baldwin walking around the desert and that kind of thing. Great cinematography, looks fantastic, but yeah, I just felt it's started to lose traction a little bit in this one, and and yeah, just didn't really have all that much going on in it, but not too bad. I did get some enjoyment from it. So that is part 4. Next up is one that I think is a bit divisive, but I'm going to go for part 5, Ravager, which was the most recent movie that sort of ended the series. And this one is there's a distinct sort of, I guess, lack of quality, but in terms of the budget, the film looks and feels very different. So this one, as I came to learn, this one was more of kind of like a fan-made movie that was beefed up and released as a sequel, and it does kind of feel like that. It's very kind of green screeny and just low budget looking filmmaking. It almost fits into like the Sharknado ilk in terms of that look, and does suffer from some very questionable CGI and just dodgy looking backgrounds that look like they came from a PlayStation game. But I bumped this one up a little bit because it does have quite a lot going on in it. It's never sort of all that boring. There's some cool sort of action scenes, and they kind of it involves a lot of soldiers and things that are going around fighting the tall man. It gets a bit post-apocalyptic. So kind of the bad effects aside, I do think they at least threw quite a few things into this, and there's some cool moments and things. So yeah, and they do a lot with the orbs as well, which was quite creative. So yeah, Ravager, not a great movie, but it does have some entertainment factor. So that's that one. Okay, next up at number 2, so the one that I enjoyed the second best is Phantasm 2. And this one's an interesting one because this is the biggest and most expensive Phantasm movie in the franchise. This one was picked up by Universal Studios. They did agree to go with this one after the first one. After a couple of interesting conditions, they didn't want Michael Baldwin, which is a shame, but I don't think he quite fit the look of a leading studio actor. And most interestingly, they agreed to do this movie on the condition that it was less weird and dreamlike than the first Phantasm. So clearly there are other people that thought maybe it was a bit too much out there. They wanted a bit more of a linear narration. And this one, it is a pretty good movie. You can tell it's got a bit of a budget behind it, which works in its favour. I didn't actually mind the leading guy who replaced Michael Baldwin. Thought he was okay. And they kind of sort of gear up, and in this one they kind of go after the tall man, and they sort of take Phantasm on the road. It's a bit of a road movie with them travelling across country and going to all these desolated towns that the tall man's destroyed. But this one's kind of cool because it's got some pretty good creature effects in it. Early on in the film, this house gets besieged by the little dwarf monsters that get quite a bit of screen time. And that's pretty cool. And there's a really cool bit with the woman who the monster comes out of her back, which I didn't see coming, and that was pretty awesome. And yeah, both me and Steve agreed. This has a bit of like a Nightmare on Elm Street feel about it. I think maybe when this came out, I think it was 1988, they were clearly under the... have been influenced by A Nightmare on Elm Street. There's a little bit of that feel to it, which I thought helped the movie. Yeah, so this one for me was a marked step up from the first one. I thought they took a lot of the concepts, but tidied it up, tightened it up a bit, threw in some cool effects and a bit of action, and yeah, made this one a bit more of a better movie. So yeah, I didn't mind Phantasm 2. I think I could watch that one again with, it wouldn't baffle me as much. But at number 1, the Phantasm movie that I enjoyed the most is Phantasm 3. I really thought this was a cool and enjoyable movie, and had a little bit of everything going off in this one. Very, very entertaining movie. So again, Reggie and the Michael Baldwin character, they are back tracking down the tall man, and they're just kind of faced at every turn with monsters and weird things going on, trying to stop them. They really do throw everything into this movie, and one of the things I like is you kind of never know what it's going to do next. It's so random. You just really don't know what's going to happen. And there's a bit of everything in this. You get some action, you get lots of cool creature effects. You get the hand monsters running around. The tall man's pretty cool. They're starting to get more creative with the orbs and the spheres. Even a little bit of kung fu fighting in this one. It's really a fun mix of quite a few ideas. And what I really kind of liked about part 3 was they start to explore the backstory of the tall man and where he comes from and what's going on in that kind of interdimensional world where he exists. And that kind of explains a lot of the weirdness, which the first one didn't do. The first one just threw it out there with no explanation. When you see a bit more of the behind the scenes of the tall man, if you will, you kind of can accept and get behind just the pure weirdness of this franchise. But for me, part 3 is head and shoulders the most kind of entertaining of the lot. I would never say I truly enjoy any of the Phantasm movies, but this one I would watch again, and I think I'd have a good time. So that's that's my order of the Phantasm movies. Let me know what you think about this, guys. Let me know if you're a fan of these movies and what order you put them in. I'd be really interested to know. And just let me know if you like me and you struggle with these as well, because I know they are quite popular. I don't see the appeal myself. So yeah, if anyone else has struggled, let me know so I don't feel as alone. But thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.